is going to be to talk about Navaratri, the Goddess Durga, and the state of the world currently. So let me figure out, there we go. My live stream down here was not working with my camera. So hello, those of you who are joining me, thank you and welcome. I'm going to be looking a little bit up and down because I've got a live stream also happening on YouTube because I wanted this video to go there as well and here on Instagram. And I'm coming here today because it's Friday. Friday is traditionally in the Vedic and Tantric traditions the day of the goddess Devi, and it's also the day of the planet Venus. So we have the feminine principle exalted, and particularly at this time of year, we're in the 9-night celebration of Navaratri, and this is the biggest Navaratri of the year. There's 4 of them, one each season throughout the year. This one is very specifically to Goddess Durga, who is the reliever of difficulties and the slayer of many demons. And we're on the 6th night tonight. So it felt really powerful to enter into Friday, the day of Venus, the day of the feminine. And specifically, we're exalting that powerful principle of the goddess that is the protectress. She's the mother, she's the protectress. And, you know, as I'm watching, as so many of us are watching world events unfold, I find it, you know, by her great design alone, that all of this is unfolding during Navaratri. It's really, really powerful. I wouldn't say it's auspicious, but there's a beauty here, and I'm going to talk about what that is because of the times that we are all living in. I think it's important to talk about one of the main practices that we do on Navaratri during these 9 nights of celebration of Goddess Durga. So that's what I'm going to be doing here today. So in lieu of recent events in our world just pretty literally going mad, I want to talk about the yuga that we're in. And if you've been here with me for a while, hello Samsara. If you've been here with me for a while, you've heard me talk about the Kali Yuga. And we are very, very, very much in the Kali Yuga, and things are really stirring on so many levels. On the levels of society, we have war and conflict over land, resources, religion, etc. He said, she said dynamics happening within that. We have a global environmental crisis, mass extinction, just got through a pandemic. I mean, it's just thick right now. Now we have this added complexity of algorithms in the online world, making it very hard to find truth and very easy to spread intensity, passion, belief, you know, opinions and beliefs. And it's just wild to see. It's wild to see where we are at. I personally find some comfort in knowing that who knows how many thousands of years ago, the rishis and great seers and yogis and yoginis saw this coming in the timeline of consciousness, of which humanity is a part. Notice how I said not our timeline, but the timeline of consciousness, because that's really what's unfolding here, is a journey of consciousness. We are just a minuscule little blip on the map of this immense journey of consciousness that's taking place. And so in that journey of consciousness, they saw these 4 very particular time periods. And we start with the Satya Yuga. It's the golden age. It's the age where truth is very easy to touch, very easy to access. The divine and human realms were not so separate, right? So it was more easy to sit with a tree and feel its spirit, to commune with all that was around us. The separation between beings was not so apparent. So this was the golden age, the age of truth. And then we sank into the, what was it, the Treta Yuga? I might get the timeline wrong. I'm just going to say that up front. I think it's the Treta Yuga next. We're in the silver era. So now the difference between the eras, so there's 4 yugas, and they're all connected to dharma. Dharma is goodness, dharma is righteousness, dharma is that relationship between the human and divine, which we know there's not technically separation, but darn do we feel like there is when there's freaking wars raging over what one person believes, what another person believes, right? So there was less separation. So dharma is depicted as a bull, and that bull is on 4 legs. And each yuga, the bull of dharma loses a leg. So we are on the 4th. So we have the silver era, Treta Yuga, he loses a leg. Then we have the Dwapara Yuga, he loses another leg. Now he's only on 2 legs. And now we're in Kali Yuga. And that poor bull is standing on 1 leg. Now that's a very difficult thing to do. But here we are. And what the signifying factor of Kali Yuga is, what's causing the bull to lose legs, is that there's a process of obscuration happening. There's an obscuration of pure consciousness. There's an obscuration of truth. It's like a smoke is coming in, and if we could boil it down to one thing, what that one thing is ignorance. It's ignorance. What we are seeing en masse in the world today is so much ignorance. And it's overclouding the good virtues, the dharma, the virtues of dharma, which are compassion and wisdom and truth and goodness and harmony and peace and all of these very, very, very important things that at the end of the day, in spite all of our differences, all of us want, right? That's what we all want. So why all this chaos? Why all this destruction? Because ignorance is at an all-time high by the nature of the Kali Yuga. And this is where we are all sitting, and we all get to be warriors of consciousness and goodness and dharma and truth, because that is what we need right now more than ever. Which brings me to Navaratri. So we are right now, while events, we just went through a very clearly powerful eclipse, which kind of exploded into this conflict in Israel and Palestine and the Middle East. And at the same time, here we entered into Navaratri. Now, as horrible as the appearances are, as deep and thick as the ignorance is, for those of us in the Vedic and Tantric traditions, it couldn't be more powerful that all this is taking place during Navaratri. And the reason for that is that this is a time that we pray with all of our hearts, with our whole beings, to the Mother Goddess in the form of Durga, who is the reliever of difficulties and the slayer of the demon of ignorance. So while things are literally horrifying and terrible, there's this power of the mother coming in. And there's a way that, and this doesn't justify violence and brutality on any level, but there's a way that somehow, our patterns just repeat, right? Clearly, we haven't learned a whole lot from history to be repeating violence and brutality yet again. It's just, so many people, I look at comments and friends who are saying similar things. It's like, how are we here now in this century? Like, how are we here now again in 2023? Because patterns repeat. And we can look at our own lives, the things that we're like, why do I keep doing that? But somehow I keep looping through this thing that harms myself, right? We keep looping through things that harm each other, that harm our civilization, right? These patterns, these karmas, these samskaras are so deep, and the nature is that they're cyclical. We need a great force. We need a great power to come in and disrupt the cycle, right? And so Goddess Durga is one of our greatest allies in doing just that, in liberating patterns that are stuck in these painful, hurtful loops and liberating them back into love. But what I was going to say is that one of the first steps in our own journey of evolution, right, when we have a cyclical pattern that keeps coming up that's causing harm to ourselves and our loved ones and potentially the world around us, right? It's not coherent with the whole. One of the first steps to transforming the pattern is it has to erupt. We have to see the kind of asuric or demonic force, and not to say we're demonic, but heaven and hell they live in each of us, every single one of us, right? So these deep-seated patterns start in the unconscious. They start to boil like a pimple into the subconscious, and eventually they're made conscious, and that's when we can change that, but not if we go to sleep. Sometimes they have to erupt. We have to look the beast in the face before we can slay it. So the way I have been looking at all this is like, man, this beast, this demonic energy within humanity is still here, and it's showing its most ugly face, and we get to decide, hopefully, to do something different with it, to make a different choice, to choose love, to choose compassion, to choose wisdom. Clearly, those are not the choices being taken, but those of us who are practitioners of any tradition, it doesn't matter, we can all use this time to offer our energies, to offer our prayers, to offer our voices, to offer the water of truth and clarity at a time where it's really dark and unclear and confusing for so many, right? So Navaratri, night 6, we have Durga in the house. Praise all that is holy. And we have a huge opportunity with this energy. We have 3 more nights, and then on the 10th day, we celebrate her victory, because ultimately good always overcomes. Ultimately, love always transcends hate. And so one thing that's so beautiful that's said about Durga is that she is imminently victorious, meaning there's nothing that could stand in her way. There's nothing that could stop Durga from succeeding in bringing light into the darkness, in bringing us back to love, right? And so, yes, Jai Ma, love wins. So one of the main practices that we do in the Tantric and Vedic traditions over these 9 nights is we chant a text called the Devi Mahatmyam. It has 3 different names. Some know it as the Devi Mahatmyam, some know it as the Durga Saptashati, and some know it as the Chandipat. And the Chandipat, while we're chanting it in Sanskrit, is really 700 verses that depict the battles of Goddess Durga. And the powerful thing about the story, so we could read it word for word and just be like, oh, it's a story of Durga and all these demons she fights and wins over, but there's always so much deeper meaning in these mythic tales, right? And so the demons that the goddess is fighting in these tales are said to represent our own thoughts. The seed of what's manifesting in our world before our eyes begins in every one of us. We can't say it's just out there, right? Clearly, we can see through, centuries of human civilization, there is a seed of violence. There is a seed of hatred that lives in us. There is also a seed of love and goodness and care and tenderness for our world around us. And it's really up to what seed we water. Look at Hamas. Perfect example. You water the seed of hatred and division and separation, you breed terrorism. This did not happen in an isolated event, right? It's being fed by this cycle of violence. So we all have that seed in us, and due to our karmas, our upbringing, our conditions, one seed might be watered more than another, right? And so what we realize in the Devi Mahatmyam is all these different demonic forces, all these asuras are just the army of thoughts. All disease, all imbalance, it all starts here in the mind, right? My teacher says, or was it my teacher's teacher, says this beautiful thing that I love repeating over and over again because it's that good, that the heart puts back together what the mind takes apart. It's the minds that's saying, we're different than them, us versus them, and here's what makes us different. This. This is mine. I was here first. This is all here. It's the disease of the mind. The heart brings everything back together, and that is the mother principle. That is Durga. So Durga is this very interesting goddess. So in Tantra, we tend to work with wrathful and sublime deities, right? Sublime being like, maybe we would think of Lakshmi, and just it's all the beauty, it's all the goodness. And then we might think of a wrathful deity. Kali is well known, right? She's intense, she's fierce, she destroys. Durga is an interesting goddess because she really kind of straddles the line between the sublime and the wrathful. And she does this because she's the mother. She is so the mother principle. She's the one who hears her children crying, and she comes running in to save the day. And man, her children are crying right now. We need that energy. We need that mother that just sweeps in. So loving, so compassionate. Like, she really is just something. She's the mother who will protect her children at all costs. She is the mother who will sweep in and banish anything that's harming. But the interesting thing here is that when we think of the destructive energies of Durga, they're all for the sake of dharma. They're all for the sake of goodness. They're all for the sake of uniting that which separated itself from love, our errant thoughts and tendencies and patterns. She frees them back into love. There's actually a beautiful, I'm going to get more into the stories, but there's a beautiful moment in some of the battles with the demons where right before she chops the heads off, they look into her eyes and they realize who she is. And before she kills them, they surrender to that because they realize that they've strayed from love, they've strayed from goodness, they've strayed from harmony, they have become dissonant with the whole, right? They're incoherent with the energies of the whole, which are supporting goodness. And so as they're slayed, they're actually brought back into that. They become a part of that again. They become coherent again. So it's just a beautiful thing. You know, when they die in the arms of love, it's like our patterns, our violent tendencies, our internalized hatred, and, you know, the way we separate ourselves from others, it all dies in the face of love. It all dies in the face of love. And Durga is that face of love. So I want to kind of go through and just talk about some of the battles because it's so relevant to our times, and it's so relevant towards this ignorance that is the hallmark of the Kali Yuga, right? That we think that we're separate, that we think that how we treat each other and the earth doesn't matter, right? Doesn't reflect back to us. So the first battle in the Devi Mahatmyam is between Durga and a buffalo-headed demon named Mahishasura. And so one of her names is Mahishasura Mardini, the slayer of Mahishasura. And so as we go into these stories, we recognize that these are these different thoughts, and there's a way that every single one of them is set up, right? So the world is in harmony, everything's in its place. The devas, or the gods, are ruling heaven, and then there's like the human realm, and then there's like the realm of the asuras. So it's kind of like heaven, hell, and the middle earth in some ways, right? And so one of the hallmarks is always that some powerful demon does like thousands of years of tapasya, which means discipline practice. And then by some weird agreement, one of the gods has to now grant him a boon or a blessing. So it's usually Shiva or Brahma or Vishnu has to offer this demon some kind of blessing. Usually the demons want ultimate power and immortality, but there's some law where they can't be granted immortality. It's not, that's one boon that the gods, even the gods themselves, as powerful as they are, they can't grant immortality. So the demons usually try to get tricky and, okay, well, I can only be killed by a woman, because they think, what woman would ever be able to slay me? So that was one of the boons in one of these battle stories with Goddess Durga. So something like that happens. Mahishasura does all this tapasya. He gets this boon. He becomes this buffalo-headed demon, and he takes over, and slowly the world goes into chaos, because whenever something goes out of sync with nature, out of sync with the whole, out of sync with the cosmos, it affects everything else. This is the law of karma. So then the whole world starts to brah, and the demons are cast out of, the devas are cast out of the heavens. And try as they might, they can't defeat Mahishasura. He's too powerful. And so the gods all bring their Shakti, their power, together. So the Shakti, it's said that the devas in the Hindu pantheon, they can't even act without the power of their goddesses, without the power of their Shaktis. And so with Vishnu, he has the Shakti of Lakshmi, Brahma has the Shakti of Saraswati, Shiva has the Shakti of Parvati or Durga, Kali. They're all one and the same to some degree. And so they put their Shaktis together, and out of that manifestation comes the most beautiful, glorious, powerful, sovereign goddess, Durga. And when they see her, they fall to their knees. She's so, so beautiful and so effulgent. She's like the light of 10,000 suns, just golden rays and dressed in red. And her ornaments are so thick, they're almost like her armor, gold and jewels, and she's just got this sweet motherly smile. And so they give her their weapons, right? She has the conch and the discus from Vishnu. She has the trident or the trishul from Shiva. She has, what else? The bow of Brahma. She's got all their different weapons. And so she goes to battle with Mahishasura. Mahishasura is representing the ego. So it's the first battle is with the ego, right? This, I am so great. I am this controlling factor in our lives, and the factor that is the most susceptible to our ignorance, right? And there's something beautiful that as practitioners we start to orient towards, is like, how do we transfer our main guidance system from the head back to the heart, right? Because remember, the heart puts back together what the head takes apart. And so the ego has to be relinquished from the seat of control. It doesn't need to be made to go away entirely, but it can't be the thing in control. Our higher consciousness has to be in control. The heart has to be that which is the guiding light, right? And so as practitioners, we're working on slaying our own egos to some degree, right? Relegating it more to a servant's position than a master's. So her first battle is with the ego, with Mahishasura, and of course she is imminently victorious. She slays Mahishasura, the gods celebrate, everything goes back to normal, and then it happens again. Although I think in the next battle, I think this one's between Shumba and Nishumba, or self-conceit and self-deprecation, or too much and too little. Because the mechanism, one of the most difficult mechanisms of the mind, is that we flip back and forth. I'm too much. I'm not enough. I have too much. I don't have enough. Like this, we drive ourselves crazy. Self-deprecation. Oh, I'm nothing. I'm horrible. Oh, self-conceit. I'm great. I'm better than that person. None of it's true. It's ignorance, right? But we do that. We all do that. I do that. Everyone does that, right? And we drive ourselves mad. And so we have self-conceit and self-deprecation. And one of their soldiers was out and saw Durga bathing in a river, and she's so beautiful. And he's like, oh my God, that is the most beautiful goddess I've ever seen. She must be with Shumba, self-conceit. She must become his wife. And so he goes and tells Shumba about this beautiful goddess he saw bathing in the river. And Shumba's like, he can't wait to have her, right? And so first they go and he sends these different thoughts. And one of the thoughts is, he who appears to be a friend. right? So these are all mechanisms of our own mind, that part of us that appears to be a friend, appears to be working towards goodness, like the way we justify things or the way we, but it's not really good, right? We all know that. We all have it. So he goes and, oh, if you come, like you will become this wonderful, goddess, so powerful at the side of Shumba and na. And the Devi's like, oh, well, there's this one problem, she said. She's like, I swore to only give myself to someone who could defeat me in battle. Ooh, what to do? And so he's like, oh, no, we can't. Like, surely you don't want to fight him. You should just come and give yourself. She's like, but I can. I made a promise. What am I to do? And she's kind of playing innocent. So Shumba gets very angry and he's like, then go take her by force. I don't care. Drag her here by the hair if you need to. So he goes to take the goddess Durga, and she slays him like that, no problem. And Shumba gets very angry, and so he sends a whole army. She slays the whole army, and so he gets very mad. He sends his most powerful army, his most powerful generals. He sends Nishumba, his brother, self-deprecation, his most powerful general, to go defeat the goddess. And pretty soon she's got this army of yoginis that all manifest from her body, because Durga's sovereign. She's one. All she needs is her own power, but she can multiply herself. And this is where we get the stories of the 64 yoginis, who are all these different forms. The Dasa Mahavidyas show up in there, the 10 tantric wisdom goddesses. Kali springs out of her third eye, although not quite yet. And so these yoginis go to battle and just destroy the army. And pretty soon she's left fighting Nishumba, self-deprecation, the general. And of course, she is victorious and wins over self-deprecation. And self-conceit is so angry. And so he storms into battle to take her life. And they're in this great battle. And this is one of those moments, I think, in the story where right before she takes his head, he looks into her eyes. And it's kind of like the Jesus on the cross moment where he's like, I know not what I do. Like, who am I to fight this goddess, the great power of existence, the power of love? And so she sweetly takes his head, and he is subsumed back into the whole. He is freed back into love. So the Devas celebrate and they sing her praises, and this is where the Tantruktam Devi Suktam comes into play, this beautiful chant that is just like Namastasye, 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 Namo Namaha, and everyone's so happy. And then it happens again, this time with a very powerful demon, and I might not be getting the order of all the stories right, but these are the three main stories I wanted to share today. So a very powerful demon comes. This demon's name is Rakta Bija, and Rakta Bija represents our endless desires. How we want something, we get it's fulfilled, but then we just want 10 more things, and then 20 more, and then 40 more, and then 80 more, and then it just keeps doubling. It's just like we want. And the power of pure desire in and of itself is a beautiful thing. It's what creates the path of the seeker, that desire to know union, that desire to know our own divinity, that desire to be a better person, right? So desire in and of itself is not a negative thing. It's a beautiful thing. But the problem is our desires end up being driven by the ego, by self-conceit and self-deprecation, by this empty hole we feel inside ourselves that we can just never seem to fill. And so they become destructive. What's happening on our planet is a perfect example of our endless desires. It's like, here we are destroying our planet, and we're just like, well, we can't seem to stop. We're just going to keep going, even though we can see where this is going. Oof, goodness. So Rakta Bija, that's Rakta Bija who's doing all this. So the thing about Rakta Bija, she comes into battle with Rakta Bija. Rakta means red or blood, we could say, and Bija is seed. So blood seed, basically. So every time she cuts him and his blood falls onto the earth, an equally powerful demon springs up in his place. So he begins to multiply, and pretty soon there's a whole army of Raktabijas that are all equally as strong. See the desires, that seed of desire, just multiplying, multiplying. And Durga gets so enraged. And this is when her third eye opens and Goddess Kali springs out of her third eye. And I think Chamunda also. Chamunda is this very fierce form of Goddess Durga. And Chamunda's got this great big mouth and she starts gobbling up the demons. But then there just keep being more. And so Durga instructs Kali. And this is one of the reasons we see her with her tongue hanging out. Durga instructs Kali to catch the blood before it hits the earth. And so she's lapping up the drops of blood before they can fall to the earth to spring up into an equally powerful demon. And so in this way, her and the army of yoginis, along with Chamunda and Kali, they defeat the demon Raktabija, this endless, endless, endless desire. And so once again, the world is restored into peace. And we praise the goddess who brought that. And why I feel like this is so important. I mean, I feel like we're living this text here in the Kali Yuga and with current events, past events, unfortunately, more than likely future events. We are living this story. Here's a text that was written, I don't know exactly when, but a long time ago. It's an old text. And it's been chanted for thousands of years. And now it's like we're living this. And we're living this because this lives in all of us. These tendencies live in all of us. And this is why we go to Shakti. What is Shakti? Shakti is power. It's the power to transform, right? And we have all these different Shaktis because we need to transform in all these different ways, right? We need to tune these different aspects of the self. And so these battles give us context for what we are navigating in our current world. They give us context and they give us something to look for, this power that is love. The feminine principle is so important right now. We have been living, and I'm not going to, don't worry, turn this into a bash the patriarchy talk, but I am going to say these are men's wars that are happening. And some of the most affected victims are women and children. And we have to bring back the feminine principle. We need to realize that the feminine principle is equal, not equal, different and necessary for the whole, for there to be balance. The mother principle that embraces in spite of differences, not separates because of them. Right? This principle that opens our eyes, gives us clear perception so that we can see that we are all one human family here. We are all one human family, and we're working out some deep karmas and samskaras that have been perpetuated for lifetime after lifetime. And we get the power to choose. Freedom is a choice to choose a different path, right? We make a different choice when we find our own sword of discernment, when we find our discus of revolving time. These are the weapons Durga holds. When we yield that trishul of harmony, when we blow that conch of vibrations that sets things back into order, right? It's like the arrow of determination, the fortitude, like all these qualities of Durga, this dignity, this sense of justice, the sense of goodness and dharma and protecting that which is good. So if anything at this time, really hold on to that within you, that force of virtue, that force of goodness, that desire for peace and justice. Not justice that's an eye for an eye. That is not true justice. That justice that says all of us deserve a place in this world. All of us deserve safety. All of us deserve a full belly. All of us deserve love from each other. That sense of justice. So let yourself really hold that during this time and pray to the mother in whatever, it doesn't matter. It could be nature. It could be the goodness within the hearts of all, and especially the goodness is within the hearts of these perpetrators of these violent and brutal acts, that they come to their senses, that they remember their humanity, that they transfer that guidance from the head into the heart. Only the head can do these things. The heart literally cannot do these things, cannot, by its nature, right? So sit in your heart. If you feel yourself starting to get pulled into the drama and the chaos, sit in your heart. Meditate in the heart. We call it the hridayam. It's the space that exists beyond all of duality, beyond all of differentiation. Just meditate in the hridayam, the seat of the heart, and pray to Goddess Durga, pray to the goodness that does exist in all of us. It does exist in all of us. It's just more buried under more layers of ignorance in some than others. And so we pray to that. We beseech that. We make offerings on behalf of that. Whew! I think that's all I needed to say today. Ma was like tapping me this morning, like, you're going live today. So there it was. And I bow to all of you who are part of my human family in this really crazy time that we're all living through. Thank you, Ilan. Yeah, just remember we're in this together, and division is never going to be the answer. So stay in your heart, stay human, stay loving, and pray to that mother principle. Find that mother energy. What ways can the mother move through you? What acts can you offer that will bring more beauty into this world that is hurting so much for all of our love? We are not powerless here. You know, it doesn't matter how far away you are. Love is power. So offer that, offer your voice, offer your clarity. My God, there's just so much ignorance. All right, my loves. So that's it. And one announcement before I sign off. Thank you so much for joining. Some familiar names popping up here. So I will be holding a closing Zoom. It'll be like this, but we'll actually do some practice, do some chanting on Dussehra or Vijaya Dashami, the 10th day, her victory day, and we'll really be praying together for victory, which means a ceasefire at this point. That's what that means. And that'll be on the 24th. I think that's Tuesday. And I think I said at 10 a.m. The Zoom link will go out on my email list. So if you're not already on my email list, I'd love to have you there. You can sign up. If you're on Instagram, you can go into my little bio link, and pretty much any page of my website, there's a newsletter sign up in the bottom at the footer. If you're tuning in here on YouTube, you can go to ShaktiTempleArts.com and sign up in the footer there. So I hope to have some of you joining me in practice and prayer as we celebrate Ma Durga's victory of light over darkness, of love over hate, of faith over fear. All right, my loves, thank you so much for tuning in. And I'm going to end the streams. Jai Ma, may she be victorious.